Welcome! This video lesson will cover some basic music theory concepts to get you started building chords and to help you determine which chords belong to a given major key. I'll show you how to translate this to the guitar in a future lesson, but for now, it's important just to get these concepts in our brains, and then we'll apply them to our instruments. So firstly, it's important to define what a chord actually is. A chord is three or more notes stacked on top of one another to create a harmony. The most basic types of chords are called triads, which are chords made up of three notes. When we're talking about major and minor chords, we're often talking about major and minor triads. There's a pretty simple recipe for making most chords, which is stacking major and or minor thirds on top of one another. Let's back up a bit further. What is a third? A third is an interval between two notes that are two note names away from each other. So for example, C and E, if those were played together, that would be a third. They skip over D, so that's that note name I'm talking about you skip over. In the case of F and A, that's a third, skips over G. In the case of D and F, that's a third, it skips over E. But what makes a major third and a minor third? It's actually the distance between these two notes, because not all intervals or thirds are created equally. Let's take C and E, for example. This is the distance of a major third, and a major third is the distance of 4 half steps. So I'm going to actually go ahead and plunk in an E here just for demonstration purposes. So we've got C, and then we've got C sharp, 1, D, 2, D sharp, 3, E, 4. So that's 4 half steps. Now, in the case of, let's say, D here. So a third above D is F, and it's actually a minor third, and that distance is 3 half steps. So I'm going to put in an F here, and as you can see, so we've got D, and then we'll go to D sharp, that's 1. We're going to E, that's 2, and then F, 3. This is where the piano is really handy, or like on your guitar, a half step is just the distance between frets. So you could think of this as 3 frets away. That's a minor third. A major third would be 4 frets away. If we're looking to make a major triad, the recipe calls for us to stack a major third on top of the root note, and then stack a minor third on top of that. So let's keep working with this C that we've got here. We've already got the major third built there. So we've got C and E. And then the recipe calls for a minor third to be built on top of that E. So let's go ahead and add that. And that would be, so if we're on E, F, G. So let's add that G. So this is a major triad. Like we've got here, starting on C, 1, 2, 3, 4, E, 1, 2, 3, G. Major triad. And this interval here, this third, that's what actually gives this chord its name, makes it a major third. So how about minor? So the recipe for a minor triad calls for a minor third to be stacked on top of the root note, and then a major third to be stacked on top of that note. So in the case of D here, we've already got F, which we know is a minor third. And then we're going to stack a major third on top of this F here, which in our case is A. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And we can double check our work here. So we have D, 1, 2, 3, F, that's our minor third. From F, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's our A, major third. And again, it's this first third, this minor third, that gives the minor chord its quality. So now that we know what it takes to build major and minor triads, let's move on to building chords that belong to a particular key. Each note in the scale, also known as scale degrees, can have a chord built on top of them. The scale itself determines the notes that we'll be using to build each chord. So rather than needing to decide if we are going to be stacking major or minor thirds, we're just going to stack thirds. The intervals between the notes in the scale will decide whether the chord quality is major, minor, or otherwise. So I'm just going to kind of blindly start stacking thirds here. And we'll see what we come up with. Alrighty. So now that I've got all of these thirds stacked, I'm just going to go through and check the intervals on all of these. And that'll tell us what type of chord, major or minor or otherwise, these are. So we already know that C is a major chord, and this is in the key of C major, by the way. So we know that's major. When we're writing out chord sheets, we don't put anything special in there. We just write C. We already know that D is a minor chord, and when we write a D minor chord in a chord sheet, we add a little M after it. So I'll just do that there. And let's move on to E here. So we've got our E, and we've got 1, 2, 3. That's our G note. So knowing that our first interval here is a minor third, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. That is the recipe for a minor chord. So this is E minor. Moving on to F, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we've got a major third there. And above that, we've got 1, 2, 3. That is the recipe for a major chord. So F major. Moving on to G, same thing. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there is a major third. 1, 2, 3. We've got the recipe for another major chord. A. So we're going to start here on A. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so minor third. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another minor chord. A minor. And then we get to B. So starting on B, we got 1, 2, 3, shaping up to be a minor chord. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we've actually got two minor thirds stacked on top of one another. And this is kind of the naughty chord, the 7th scale degree chord. And when you have this going on where you got two minor thirds stacked on top of one another, you have what's called a diminished chord. Now this isn't used a whole awful lot in popular music. It's used quite a bit in jazz, but it's kind of a spicy, flavorful chord. And we'll go more into detail talking about its function later on, but I'm just gonna go ahead. There we go. So that's the symbol for diminished. So now we know all the chords that belong in the key of C major. And actually, since all major scales are built using the same formula of whole steps and half steps, we can extrapolate the chords for any major key. So for example, if we were to transpose this into the key of D major, all of our notes would change, but the relationship between them would stay the same, meaning the chords built on each of those scale degrees would remain the same, which is really cool. So I'll just do that really quick now. I'll just select everything here and transpose to D major. And here we go. We've got D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G, A, B minor, C sharp diminished. So that formula is going to go for the one chord, the first built on the first scale degree, major. Built on the second scale degree, it's minor. Built on the third scale degree, it's minor. Built on the fourth scale degree, it's major. Built on the fifth scale degree, it's major. Built on the sixth scale degree, it's minor. And finally, built on the seventh scale degree, it's diminished. This concept is the fundamental basis for transposing songs, meaning playing the same song, but changing the key that you're playing it in, and for other extremely handy tools like Roman numeral analysis and the Nashville numbering system, which I'll cover later on. So using what we covered today and a bit of practice, let's say somebody says play a 2-5-1 in the key of C. You'll know exactly what they want. So let me show you here. I'm going to back up. So 2-5-1, they want you to play 2, a D minor, a 5, G, and then a 1, C. So they want you to play a D minor chord, then a G chord, then a C chord. It's a lot of information in a neat little package. Not only that, but we also know what components make a chord major or minor, and we can figure out which notes belong to a given major or minor chord. These notes can be used as target notes when writing melodies or improvising, and you can even use these notes to help you write harmonies. So this is some really powerful stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to clarify.